everyone. Welcome back to Loving Life Creatively with Lizzie Menz, the show where we celebrate the beauty of creativity and the magic it brings to our lives. I am your host, Lizzie, and I am thrilled to take you on this incredible journey through the world of local artists, musicians, woodworkers, and all kinds of creative souls. Dive into the amazing world of colored pencil art. I am super excited to welcome Dava Dahlgran, a well-known, talented, and inspirational colored pencil artist who is also a teacher and has juried international exhibits. You can also find her work at Raven's Wish in Janesville, Woodland Studios in Stoughton, and her masterpieces can also be seen in Studio 23A in the Old Town Mall, also located in Janesville. Dava, thank you so very much for joining us on the show. We're so happy to have you here.
I'm very happy to be here, too. I probably need to tell you, I have not juried international shows, but I've had work juried into international shows.
Juried into international shows. Okay, one thing that I need to learn is about all the artist world.
Yeah, everything, and there's a language for everything.
Sure, of course. So thank you for that. You've taught me something already, which I know you're going to teach me a lot more today. So, let's go through some of the different questions that I would love to share for you to share the world, your journey. So,
okay.
You ready? Let's jump right in.
Okay.
All right. So, please share a bit about your background and what kicked off your creative career.
I have always loved to draw and create, and I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, taking what was then called commercial art.
Oh, commercial art.
Right out of high school. They call it graphics now. It's just a matter of time.
Sure.
And my first job out of school was in a art department for a company that did silkscreen on sweatshirts, and they made pennants and stuffed animals, things for colleges, primarily. It was a great place to be able to start out. From that point on, I've had kind of a unique bounce, but everything I've done has had something that taught me more about art in one way or another. I worked in a print shop doing the camera work to put together the negatives for the offset presses and things like that. I ran a press for a short period of time, a small press. And then I worked for a number of years for the Iowa Bureau of Criminal Investigation as a photographer in the crime lab.
Oh, interesting.
It was very interesting. I was primarily in the lab itself, and I spent a lot of time doing color printing, and the knowledge I got of color and how it worked together doing that has been invaluable to me ever since.
I imagine.
Beyond that, my last job, which was almost 20 years of doing it, was in a gallery where I did sales work and framing. And so that gave me an appreciation for what happens when I take something now and hand it across the counter for somebody else to frame. Every single thing seems to come back to the art I'm doing now.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's wonderful, all the different decisions of the journeys that you made, probably not in the back end thinking that this was going to be on a creative side, especially that one thing is printing. I mean, that's very creative, but it's not what you do now, but to learn all those different facets.
It all teaches you how to see and think about things, which is the most important. That has more to do with your art than what your hand does. If you can see it, think it, understand it, your hand will probably do it.
That's very profound. I think we should patent that. I really do.
Well, most of the time we get scared and we get in our own way. We stand in the way of just letting things happen, and it doesn't mean you're not thinking and doing things rationally, but you can actively get in your own way sometimes.
Absolutely. That's for sure. I think that's easier than anything else, is to get in our own way. Really.
Right. Yeah, we're too worried about the end product and always, is this good enough? And it's always good enough. It's either, as has been said 1,000 times, it's a lesson if nothing else.
True.
But how many times I know I've put a piece of art away thinking, oh, this is hopeless. I'm never going to do anything with it. And 5, 10 years later, my skills have changed. Bring it out and I go, oh, I know what to do with this. So don't be so hard on yourself.
So true. I have art leaned up in my walls down in my basement. As I look in the basement, like where my basement is. But I have pieces of art that I now look at. You're right. I guess I never thought of that until later in life. I look at them and think, oh, I could do this, I could do that. So they're waiting. It's a waiting game now. But I do agree with you. I think your mind does change a ton as you create.
And sometimes it helps to get away from your work so that you aren't so tied to what your original thought was. You've got to be able to negotiate with that piece of paper. It's a two-way street. It's not just you slapping something down on there and saying this is the way it's going to be. You have to negotiate the whole thing. That's all art really is a negotiation.
That's profound also. It is. That really is. So share with us what inspires you most in your art.
I like things that tell stories. And I will honestly say sometimes I have no clue where an idea comes from, but I'm sure it's something I caught out of the corner of my eye as I was walking down the street, or a conversation half heard, or maybe it was some emotion I just needed to get out. The piece on the easel beside you there is probably a good example of that one. That one's...
That's a good emotion.
Well, it's called Mother Nature's Anger. So some things... The artwork, there's usually humor of some sort in my art, but sometimes the humor is in the picture and not so much in the title, and sometimes it's the other way around.
Sure. Sometimes I feel that naming the art is harder than creating it.
It can be. It can be. Often I have the title before I even know how I want to do the artwork. And if not, it will evolve while I'm drawing on it. If I get to the end of a piece and I still don't have a title, it's hard work.
It is. Agree. I definitely agree. So tell us about a certain project that you are really particularly proud of.
Well, a number of years ago when I was still living in Idaho, I put together a show for the gallery where I worked. I had the idea from seeing a kid's flip book, it has three page parts, and you can change them, and it changes the look of the drawing. And so I had the idea that we could do that with art. We could frame pieces in, a triptych, one above the other, and what we did was we had 3 people sitting together side by side, and each piece had a different theme, and then you could mix the parts. It was a year-long project. We even wrote a grant for framing. There were 4 of us. I enlisted 3 more people because I knew I couldn't do that many big pieces within a year to meet the deadline. And so we took all our own photos. I did the photography part. Everybody had to bring their own models. All together, we had over 43 models involved in this thing. So it was a major undertaking. And the night of the show opening, then everything hung on the wall, and we framed it under plexi to make it safe. People were allowed to take them off the wall, pick them up, and move them. And it was a very, very successful show. We each did three-part pieces and a spare part, so there would be something else to just move around for fun.
Wow, what a cool interactive gallery.
It,
Most of them you're like, I don't want to touch nothing.
right, and that was, that was part of the event, part of the talking in working at the gallery. How do we keep people from being so afraid of art? They need to interact with it, and it just, one idea led to the next.
That's super creative. That's wonderful. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that. Not that I go to a whole bunch of galleries or anything, but never heard of that. Have you seen that happen anywhere else?
I haven't.
No, I think that's a one and done kind of thing. What a wonderful adventure.
It was an adventure, and it was a learning process. Learn how to write the grant for all that framing, but there was a lot of framing involved. We couldn't afford that on our own.
Sure.
So it was. It's probably the most involved project I've been in.
Yeah.
I've had other things I've done that I'm very proud of. I belong to the Colored Pencil Society of America, and I've belonged to it since it started. And they have district chapters, and I did start a district chapter where I lived before I moved here, and I'm proud of that too. It's still going. I still belong to it, even though I don't live there anymore, and I belong to the chapter that's down in Chicago too. So
wow.
I've just been in the right place at the right time. I've led a charmed life, and I'm aware of it.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. What challenges have you faced in your creative journey? Has there been any challenges?
I suppose the biggest challenge is also an asset in the long run has been that I have moved several times, and so then you have to kind of reestablish yourself, But the first thing I did was to join a local art group, like the Janesville Art League here. That's your best bet. You get to know people immediately. You know what's going on, and for most of my artistic career, I did art fairs and things to get myself out in front of people. So it was a challenge to reestablish, and yet in some ways it wasn't. Partly because I did colored pencil, and people would be curious about it, because that wasn't something at the beginning, at least, that people expected to find in fine art.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, and going back to being at the Art Institute, is that when you started using more of the colored pencil, or were you always drawing with colored pencil?
Actually, there it was everything from pencil to paint and lots of different mediums.
Sure.
I was a watercolor artist for, probably 20, 25 years. And then in about, it would have been around 92, or 82 rather, there was an article in an art magazine. And S.K. Cook had an illustration in there of these chocolates that looked like you could pull them off the page, and it was at the same time an ad for Prismacolor pencils, and so I ordered them. And I just played with them for a number of years before I made the complete switch. It was when the Colored Pencil Society of America got started, and they had their first show, and everything had to be pure pencil, that I really made the switch.
Oh, neat. Very neat. I didn't know that was a thing either until being a part of the Art League. And then when you emailed me asking about the show, I thought, wow, that's really a neat thing. And I've seen other artists with colored pencils, but not like yours.
No.
You have a gift, huge gift.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So how do you stay motivated and inspired? And how do you manage your time too as well?
Well, I don't know how well I manage my time, to be honest. But being a part of Studio 23A, having the opportunity 2 afternoons a week to go down and work with 3 other artists, and sometimes 4 other artists, because we have a couple people who drop in. And, you're always bouncing ideas off of each other and learning things that someone else has seen or heard about. We're not all colored I'm the only, well, I'm not the only, but I'm the primary colored pencil artist at this point in time. But we have an oil painter, acrylic, and collage work. Bob Witzak does the oil. Karen Lemke does acrylic and collage, and she's done some colored pencil too. And the fourth member is Claudia Dare Fitzgerald, who for most of her career was a watercolor artist, but she's been doing a lot of colored pencil lately too.
Oh, she has. Okay, cool. Very cool. And if anyone hasn't gone up to the studio that's in the Old Town Mall, you should. There's a lot of paintings in the windows, and you can look in and also watch the artist's work as well. So it's a neat opportunity.
Yeah, we're there Tuesday and Friday afternoons, and we encourage people to walk in and not just look at the artwork that's posted. You know, come in and peek over our shoulders and ask questions.
We'll take you up on that.
We're very open to that. We enjoy that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Share the craft, right?
Yes. You know, what other career is there where you spend so much time encouraging and expecting to grow your own competition? You do that,
Good
you know.
way to put it. Yeah, that's
You know, you do it because that's what inspires everybody. You know, that's what keeps people going. I belong to the Art League. They have, you know, shows with themes. I love themed exhibits and shows. And belonging to the Colored Pencil Society, they have two exhibits a year. The international exhibit, which has to be pure pencil, and that's always in conjunction with a convention, another place to get all excited. And then the second show is an online show called Explore This, and that's where you can use things other than just colored pencil.
Ah, okay.
There again, the piece beside you is in a show that just opened today online, and that's actually a mixed media piece. I used some gold leaf behind the leaves to reflect the light a little differently, and that piece is done on drafting film, which is the two-sided, you know, textured drafting film. The blue color in the background is actually a paper put behind it. So I'm always experimenting with new surfaces.
Love that creativity. Yeah.
That's another thing that keeps me involved and excited.
Inspired. Yeah. Love it. Love it. Who are some of your influencers and mentors?
Oh, that's hard to say. You know, like I said before, probably Esky Cook, and getting from her wanting to look up other colored pencil artists. Bernard Pallon had a book out very early that I used and learned from. Bette Borgeson did. Most of it was through books in the beginning. And then once the Colored Pencil Society was formed, I joined immediately. And I've gotten to meet people from all across the country that I never thought I would. Bernard is one of them. You know, I now consider him a friend. At the time I had that book, I thought, oh, you know, I'm looking up to this man. And he's a wonderful person.
That's wonderful that you got to meet him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to meet him, work with him. Excuse me. I was on the national board for a couple of years, and I got to meet some really cool people, including Vera Kernow, who started the whole thing. You know, and most of these people were, and some still are, I think, working freelance artists. I got to take my very first colored pencil workshop was with an artist who drew Time magazine covers. So I've been privileged to meet some wonderful people and to realize that they are people and they are just as excited to teach me as I am to teach somebody else.
Yes, that's wonderful. Just like you said earlier, being at the right place at the right time and being blessed that that's happened. to get the
Oh, and
opportunity.
over and over again, it's just, I, it may have happened partly because I'm nosy and curious and I want to know what's going on. There's always something there that makes me seek out places where where these things happen.
Well, and your tenacity and courage as well to jump out and go talk to someone or, approach someone. That's another big part of it too. You find a lot of artists that are a little bit more reserved. They're not as extroverted.
Yeah, and
But
in the beginning I wasn't either.
no, you weren't?
I think
No?
it's meeting these people that's given me a much more extroverted outlook on life. Took the fear away.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Think about all the things you would have missed out if you wouldn't have done that.
Right, yeah. And, in the conventions and things like that, they always have a couple of workshops you can take. And sometimes my biggest takeaway from a convention can be a half-heard conversation in the hallway. When somebody's talking about a new technique that they've tried.
Sure.
So I keep my ears open and I'm nosy. That's just what it comes down to.
I love that. I do love that. So what advice would you give to aspiring creatives in our community? I know we talked about a lot of other things, but is there anything else that you would give out there to our community?
Just don't expect to be perfect with your first outing. Let yourself be bad first. When I go to workshops, I do not come home with a nice, pretty looking picture. I come home with bad pictures because I'm trying something that's new to me. And you can't be discouraged by that. Just take it and roll with it. And chances are you're going to adapt that to something that's better for you anyway.
That's profound advice. It really is that. And I have to share with you too, Dava is another one that is going to do a little mini session of how to use colored pencils. And I will admit this morning I was thinking, oh, I wonder what I'm going to draw because I've colored with colored pencils. I've dabbled with it, but it's never been a focus of mine. So I can't wait for you to show me.
Oh,
but
good.
that little girl in me, I will say, oh my gosh, you're going to be on camera and you're going to be trying something new. So I'm super excited to do that. And I'm really grateful that you're willing to also share your little craft with our world as well. And I shouldn't say
thank you.
little, big craft.
When I teach, I always set my students up for success. I encourage subjects that don't have to all look just alike. So you'll do fine.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and earlier, before the show even started, we were talking about being cheerleaders for other creatives and getting, helping them get out of their comfort zone and being okay with whatever they create.
Yeah, that's what we all need as a cheerleader.
Yes.
And you've been doing a good job of that for all of these artists. So I have to thank you for that too.
Oh, Dava, thank you. That means the world to me. Thank you very much. That's definitely the passion of mine and the whole purpose of this show. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. So as we wrap up with you, Dava, just for the moment until we get into our mini session, I just really want to thank you for being on the show with me today and bringing your wonderful pieces, and you'll get a chance to talk about them too, just coming up after our little mini session.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. All right, so up next, join us for this amazing colored pencil art session. And if I was you, pause right now, go grab your colored pencils and a piece of paper, and come back and join us today. Let's dive into the transformative power of learning. Learning is truly not confined to textbooks and classrooms. It is a lifelong journey that begins with a spark of curiosity and continues with every new discovery. It is the joy of exploring the unknown and the thrill of uncovering hidden truths. Speaking of new discoveries, my favorite saying is always, let's dive in, ride the waves, because my brain always transitions to the energy and excitement I feel when I scuba dive. And when I was 7, my parents actually took us to Pearl Lake for the first time. There I watched scuba divers come in and out of the water. I will admit I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, what are they doing? And as he explained, I immediately dreamt of doing that and remembered his stories of scuba diving in Okinawa. Back then, learning to scuba dive wasn't so prevalent. And my dad, really, he just found gear and dove right in. So now fast forward, I'm in my 20s and we are living in Italy at the time, and a friend of mine took me snorkeling in the Mediterranean. Whoa, I was hooked. I was hooked forever. That was just sparked a light in me that I'll never forget. So now fast forward again, when I got into my 50s, I finally reached the dream of getting my scuba diving certification and got to go scuba diving. So it was a really long time wait, but hey, my dreams came true, right? So why do I share this story with all of you? Well, in previous episodes, my guest always talked a lot about being self-taught. I too am self-taught as a creative. But on another note, I also have guests that have been on the show that are college grads, and I am as well. I myself have an Associate of Applied Science degree in AutoCAD, where I attended ITT Technical College in Norfolk, Virginia. So today, I really wanted to stress the importance of education and learning. Throughout history, learning has been the driving force behind humanity's greatest achievements. It has fueled the curiosity of scientists, the creative artists, and the vision of innovators who have changed the world, really. Learning also connects us. It brings us together, bridging gaps and fostering understanding. It is a universal language that transcends borders and really unites us in all our shared quest for knowledge and truth. Whether we learn through reading, experimenting, traveling, or simply experiencing life, every single moment is an opportunity to grow and evolve. Learning opens our minds and hearts, enriching our lives in ways we never really would have imagined. So embrace the power of learning. Let it be your guiding star, your source of inspiration, and your pathness to greatness. Remember, the journey of learning is endless, and the possibilities really are limitless. So now, let's get to it. Please take a moment now to pause this video, like I said before, gather up your creative tools, and let's join my special guest, Dava. Welcome back, everyone. Did you grab your paper and pencils to create along with Dava and I? I so hope that you did. So, Dava, you've got the floor. Take it over.
All right. Well, I think before we start, I should show you the few things it takes to get started.
Okay.
And I'll tell you that, and then I'll tell you that I have a whole room that is just packed with stuff that I absolutely think I have to have. But this is all that's really necessary. The brush to brush crumbs off, because you don't want to do this or it'll make a streak with pencil crumbs.
Sure.
You need a good pencil sharpener, and at home I use a battery or a electric sharpener, and a kneaded eraser, because you can't take a regular eraser and scrub. It will scrub the pencil in. You have to take a kneaded eraser, soften it, and use it to dab and pull things away.
Oh.
So that's the basics.
Okay.
That's just the basics. This is going to be a real simple lesson using red, yellow, blue, and black.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and black.
This is our picture.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to work on the pear, which I'm afraid of the pear, just so y'all know.
Well,
Try
you
not
don't
be
have
afraid
to
of the
be.
pear.
You're going to make a shape that looks like a pear.
Okay.
See, not real important that it's perfect.
Okay.
This is a guide. It's not the
guide.
law.
Okay.
And make your outline reasonably light. Well, this is when I get to watch a student to see whether they have a light hand or a heavy
hand.
Because there's nothing right or wrong with either one. I just
Sure.
have to know which way to teach
Which
them.
way that? Yes. Okay.
Now, when I travel, this is what I take. There's a lot of grays and blacks and things, because I often do what's called a grisaille, which will be a whole drawing done just in grays, and then the color is glazed over it. But we're going to do the simplest version of that today.
Okay.
In fact, I
Okay.
think after seeing that, I'm going to have you use, I got this house just in case. I'm going to have you use a gray instead of a black, so it won't
Okay.
be so.
You got it.
But the one thing, normally I work from dark to light. But this has this yellow undertone,
Yeah.
and yellow is a weak color. If you put it over something else, it's not going to come up as yellow, but
Sure.
it's really going to make the other colors brighter.
Right, right.
So what I need you to do is really just fill in, and you can use the side of your pencil here, just like I did here. Just fill in almost all of this. I would say maybe not this little edge over here,
But just
with
the left-
yellow.
Okay.
And
you kind of did this.
I did because I want to try and keep it as smooth as possible. When you have a lot of time to work, then I make you use a real sharp point and lots of teeny tiny little hatch marks and circular marks. But we're going to do something that's more like a sketch, I guess I would say. But you
Okay.
can build on this to create all your anything you want to do. And a lot of other techniques will start out with this type of technique.
Okay.
Now the one thing you need to watch is there are some highlights here. Leave those the paper. We want
Leave those to pay. Okay, got it.
so.
So I can extend it out a little bit more here.
Yep. You can extend. I would take it clear over.
To a little bit.
See, yeah, even here you can see this yellow underglow. So I put yellow. Only reason I say don't put it on this half over here is so that we can get our shading to be just a little more dynamic than what we've got here. And we're using 3 colors because all the other colors are made from red, yellow, and blue. When I travel, this makes a perfect kit because I can do just about anything I want to with it. And I'm going to sit and draw if I've got an extra minute wherever I am, or waiting in an airport, or
That's so nice. You can't do that with acrylic paints.
right.
They might holler at you if you bring out
Right,
acrylic.
yeah. The only adaptation I've had to make for while I'm flying is to use a handheld sharpener because the battery ones make sounds that are unnerving.
Sure, sure, sure. Okay, should I do any more?
I would give this a little more rounded shape here. Let it
Okay.
soft, let the edges just kind of
Size.
disappear.
Okay.
But you're about there. Doesn't take much. Yeah, and you're automatically going with the shape of the pear, which is good, to follow the contours.
Oh, the contour. Okay.
Okay, now then, the next color we're going to put on there is actually the gray.
The gray? Okay.
We're going to start with that, but we're looking for our deepest areas. It'll be these areas down in here, and if I put my hand over part of this, you can see how much deeper that is.
Yep.
And make sure that your edges don't draw it in as though it had a hard outline. You want your strokes to start at the bottom and come up and follow the contour.
I just follow the contour. Okay.
And your paper can move any direction. You can take it and turn it so that you make it handy. But you don't need it to be really dark because it's going to get darker when the other color goes over it.
Okay.
So mostly what we're learning about today is an order of applying color. We're not getting fancy about technique for drawing. Like I say, I deliberately made this just any old shape that looks kind of like a pear. Now you can see that I got too heavy here. See this line?
Yep.
That's what you don't want to do.
Okay. You want to just blend it.
You want it to blend it softly in. I'm good at setting examples to show people what not to do so they know later. And of course that's intentional.
You're sure? Yes.
Well,
That's for sure.
sometimes I say I'm not always so good at doing it right the first time, but I can fix a lot of things.
Fixing is key.
Yes,
That is-
I have learned ways to fix things that. And so this, it doesn't look like you've put a whole lot on here. We'll see later what this does.
With this. Okay. And how was that?
I think that's very good.
Okay. Thank you.
So now what I want you to do is take the blue and go over everything that you made gray, and then look for other places where there are dark areas in your in your reference photo. And by the way, I take all my own reference photos.
Oh.
There are places you can go online to get photos that are free to use, but especially since I like to enter juried shows, I like the competition.
Sure, sure.
Those all have the rule that if you use a photo, it has to be your own.
Oh, good to know. Okay, sure.
And even if that's not in the rules, you want to make sure you're using a photo that's copyright free.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing.
It is a very big thing, but it's not taught very much, you know.
Sure.
Things like calendars and all of this you can use in like high school and school in general for teaching from, but sometimes the message doesn't get across as much as it should, that when you get out in the world you can no longer do that. And I like to take my own. I can control.
Sure.
You know, I control what I'm doing. Cell phones are wonderful because I can snap a picture if I just see something walking down the street, although if it's a face, then I have to go get them all released, and that's a whole nother can of words.
Yeah. Yeah, so any artists out there, do remember that too. If you are taking photos or even of someone else's art, just make sure that you can utilize that and get that approval, and a signed approval is important.
Yes, it has to be signed.
Yes.
That looks pretty good.
Thank you. I could go up maybe a little bit more right there.
Oh, good. You're starting to see just the things I'm wanting you to. It's the eyes that do the drawing more than the hand. So the more you see, the more you will put in there. That's why you don't like the first piece you do the second. You'll like it better than the first, and so forth and so on.
Sure.
It's the looking that's important. One of the exercises that I remember doing in art school was having 10 minutes to draw an object that they set on our desk. And we had to do it within 10 minutes. And we all sat down and we drew this thing. Then they gave us another similar but different object, and we had 10 minutes again, but we couldn't pick up our pencil for the first 9 minutes. All we could do was look. Every one of us did a better drawing the second time with 9 minutes of looking and 1 minute of doing.
Wow.
So that's something to keep in mind, and it's not a bad exercise to do every once in a while.
Right.
I do adapt it when I teach adults because I find I can't get them to sit still and do it for 10 minutes. I make it 5, but they still get the point.
Yeah, I would be one of those adults.
Okay, now let's try the red.
Okay.
Now, within the red, you're going to have a lot more detail than you think. This is nice because you can see the direction of
the streak is kind of
the streaks are in there for you to guide you.
Right.
So just remember that you're leaving your highlights.
Yep.
And yes, you can turn that paper any direction. It doesn't have to stay right down. I usually find at this point that if I can do my strokes more in one direction, it's better than going back and forth. I will eventually want to go the other way, but I make my strokes go one way and then I turn it and I make them go another. Sure. And always follow the contours. That's good. Now, in spite of the fact that with your outline, I thought you might have a little heavier hand. You've got a nice light hand when you're doing this. This is working good. Now, like I say, light or heavy is not good or bad. It's just you have to know where your strengths are and make that a strength.
I suppose because sometimes you probably want to be heavier handed.
As you get into more and more layers, a lot of colored pencil pieces will, they'll have 10, 20 layers of color. But if you don't put them on lightly, you can't get very many on. Once you fill the tooth of the paper, it gets glossy and you can't get it to take more. So you want to start out light and then you build a little heavier as you get toward the end of the drawing. Oh, this is taking on nice shapes.
Thank you. I'm not so afraid of it now.
Oh, good. Yeah. Do you enjoy the feel of the pencil on the paper?
I do. I do. Every once in a while, I will grab a couple of colored pencils and do stuff, but I'm always too hard on myself. Way too hard on myself.
Yeah. I find it's very therapeutic to just sit there and feel the pencil move across the paper.
I'll still lay on my belly in the living room floor.
Oh.
And with my papers and, and my
That's the
pencils
difference in our age. I couldn't get back up again.
There are days for me.
I'm more inclined to put a drawing board in my lap in the recliner.
Oh, sure. Comfort. Comfy.
Comfort.
Comfy, yeah.
Like I say, colored pencil is normally a fairly time-consuming medium. So what you're accomplishing here today will only be half of what you would do if you had all the time in the world to do it.
Sure, of course. And so that all of you out there with us aren't doing this for 5 hours, I guess we are at time. We have to not hurry along, but hurry along.
Right.
A bit.
Just get a light coat over it, and then I'll show you one more step, and you will know all the steps that you can go back into, and you can keep repeating these steps. I usually don't repeat the gray step or the black one, and you can choose another color to start with too. If you've got something that's mostly purple, start with a deep purple instead. You can alter things. It's the values we're working with.
Well, I never thought to use blue, honestly, with the gray. I never would have thought
what
that.
we're really trying to do is the gray is in there to create a value. The blue goes over it to isolate that dull gray from the rest of the colors so the colors can mix like they naturally do. So you can go very, very lightly over, if you hold this out here, you see there's a glow.
Yes.
This has a lot of spots in it, but it has a glow.
Yes. So just go ahead and
just give it a light dusting, and then I'll show you how I like to blend colors.
I love to blend. When I'm painting, I always love to blend.
I'm going to do a little heavier bit here just so I can show you what I'm talking about. Anybody turns in late, they're going to say, and this is an artist?
Yes.
They have to go back and watch and see if we can. I'm just doing part of this so that I can.
You're all good. It's all good.
Okay, so now we've got, if I can borrow that red pencil for just
Sorry,
a minute.
I got it in my hot little hand there.
Well, if I'd have been thinking, I'd have put in 2 of each. So I'm really doing this very, this could be your style. There's nothing wrong with a style that still looks like a scribble. But what I want to be able to show you is that when you get lots of layers on, and I build heavier on every one of these layers as I go back and repeat the process.
Yep.
I like to blend with a brush.
Oh.
This is a Fritz scrubber that I get from Cheap Joe's art stuff. But there are scrubbers out there in a lot of brands. Excuse me. Now you can see how.
Oh yeah, it is blending.
What it's doing is smearing some of that color into the little white divots in the paper, into the blend of it. See if you've got enough on there to feel what happens. You can use
Oh yeah.
I've got them in. I use all different sizes. There's bigger ones and
The smaller one, yeah.
and
Wow, that's cool.
It really does a nice job of.
Yeah, you watch it really transform.
And you see how much brighter it is too.
Yes.
It felt like you were working with something that was very pastel, but as you use the blending, you get the life to it.
Yeah, most definitely.
And you can blend more than once. You can add more color, blend again. The advantage of the brush for doing this, instead of using another pencil, is that it doesn't add waxed, and you don't get that buildup. You can add many more layers of color when you use a brush than if you used a pencil. There are pencils that are just meant for blending. They're basically nothing but the wax content and no color. And, you know, those are very popular for blending too. But once I discovered what brushes could do, I've kind of been stuck on them.
I can see. I'm intrigued. Very intrigued.
Well, I love watching everything get brighter. You know.
Yeah.
And if I have someone who really does have a very heavy hand, oftentimes they will be completely shocked. What they think they have is a nice pale color when they add the brush, it's jumping off the page at them.
Yeah, yeah.
One other thing I should mention, just in general, is one of the basic things to know is that if you have an area that's dark and you want to make it lighter, you don't do it by adding white. If I add white over this, it's going to smear and in some cases just get brighter rather than disappear, because white's pretty transparent.
Right, sure.
That's why if you need to take anything off, I usually keep this in a pocket so it stays warm, but you lift and pull. You just lift and pull until you get it.
Until you get it off. Sure.
One exception to that is I have some battery-powered erasers, which I didn't bring because I wasn't sure that sound was going to be good for the camera. Because that battery spins, it pulls up and pulls it away. So you can use a battery-powered eraser where you really need to get a lot off.
Sure, sure.
I've got both battery and electric.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to take a lot off.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I suppose, especially if you want to change the direction of something, then then you really, really want to. But show me your blending. Show me how you blend. I'd like to watch you blend the.
What I'm doing here, you mean?
Yeah.
And see if
Or
I've
whatever
got
you
enough
feel
left
best.
to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just add a little bit more over here.
I learn by doing, but I also learn by watching too. So.
That I do too. My hand needs to feel that motion, but I have to get something in my brain to go with it.
Oh yes.
Now, I'm using another. You can also go in little circles, but even if you do, you're still going with the direction. See how I'm? I can really fill in the tooth faster with a circle than just making straight lines, and every one of these bumps has 365 degrees, so you can come at it from a lot of directions.
Sure, true. Yeah. All the different fibers in the paper, it really is. A different type of a surface.
Now, I don't use these. I don't know if I ever have used these on the drafting film, because that is a slicker surface to begin with.
Oh yeah.
With that, I can, if it's a large enough area, I just blend with my finger or a tissue or something like that.
Sure.
Or the little rolled paper stumps.
Yes.
So.
Okay, so one more thing, I have a question for you. How do you make that look so shiny? How do you make that with just using the paper instead of doing anything else?
It's a matter of how it contrasts with what's around it. And the more layers you get on the paper, the more you fill in the tooth of the paper around it.
Oh, it just
It's an illusion. It's just all illusion. All of it's illusion. But we've put on maybe a tenth of the pencil that I would put on before I was done.
Sure.
And once I get a few layers on, I may come back and go from different angles and little circles and things. But I can make it shiny. Is a function of how much pencil is on there, and the blending becomes burnishing when you've got a heavy layer of pencil on. When you've essentially filled the tooth with your colors, then the blending becomes burnishing, and they'll look much shinier.
Okay.
If you brush too much, you brush it off. And I can go back, give it another layer. I can keep doing this and getting a little heavier with my application each time, so that when I blend it, it starts to get shinier and shinier. I don't know if you can.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah, most definitely.
And, you know, I would probably have a little, you know, it won't be just the red there once I get into it. I may have a few little areas where I'll add in a little bit of blue to create a purple of sorts, just to give it variety.
Yep. When I see too, like in this pair, there's a little bit of green in there too.
There's a little bit of green. You see all these little dips and dots, which
Yep. Are just that.
that's
Yes.
all they are.
That's all. Okay.
Now, if you have something like sometimes an apple will have light colored dots,
Yes.
the way you do that is to take a piece of tracing paper or something and lay it over, and you take a real hard lead pencil and you dot it, and it'll create little divots in the paper so that when you draw, your pencil doesn't go down in there and they remain white.
Oh,
That's an impressed line. You can do
Yeah.
that to make little lines like for the reflection in your eyes or
Sure.
something like that.
Sure. Interesting.
Oh,
Interesting.
Yeah, you don't want to get me to, everything leads to the next. I'll
Yes,
just keep
yes.
telling you
No,
more stuff.
We will continue this when I come and see you at your studio.
That sounds like a good
So,
idea.
Yes, yes. So all of you out there, I hope that you've been following along and creating your pear or apple or whatever that is. And here is mine, my little start of one. And Dava, I have colored pencils and stuff at home, so I'm gonna go home and keep working on it. And
Sounds good.
I'll shoot a picture and I'll send it to you.
And you can
Oh,
take
I
that
can
with
take
you.
that.
You
Okay,
can
this
take
is my
that.
souvenir. I'm gonna make you sign the back of this.
No,
right,
when
then.
I hand out reference photos, people get to keep them because I know they're
Oh.
not going to finish them in one session.
Sure, sure. Of course not. Yeah. Like you said, there's a lot more layers going on in there. I appreciate your sharing your techniques with us. Thank you.
You're very
and
welcome.
With me. Yeah, and it's been a delight.
It has been. I've had a
Yes.
great time.
Me too. Me too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Dava, well, welcome back to the show again. Please share with us the amazing pieces that you've brought with today. They are beautiful, and honestly, looking at them, I can't wait for our viewers to see them because you can't tell that it's colored pencil. You are outstanding, so please, you have the floor. Share.
Well, it's quite often that the first show that any chapter or group does will have the title, "I Can't Believe It's Colored Pencil." It's a good chameleon when it comes to materials. It can look like a lot of different things. And every different artist has a different technique that they work with. I tend to like to work on a colored surface often, which is what I've done with this. It's the gray surface. But once I get excited, know what I'm drawing, I just draw. You know, it's just without plan. It's just I see and I do. This piece has a wonderful history because the quilt, this is Karen Lemke. She's one of the artists I work with, and she also does quilts. And she brought this in to show us. And each part of that quilt was like a different part of the color wheel. And I just wanted to draw it. So she wrapped it around her just to show us. And there I had my idea. So I've done 3 pieces now that are based on Karen and her quilt. She is such a willing model. She would mug for me and make all these faces. The honest truth is I never see her without the smile, but she did all these other faces for me just for this.
Wow.
And all 3 pieces have been very successful. One of them was in a book, one in a magazine. This one has won a couple awards. This one was in the CPSA International show. So it's been just a perfect series for me. I have one more piece that belongs to Karen. And so that one has been a lot of fun because it just continues to have successes, and we all like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, in the way that you draw the quilt, not only just her face, but the way that you create the quilt and all the patterns, and it's outstanding, just outstanding.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love drawing fabrics. My mother was a dressmaker, so I think there's something there. I was always used to seeing color and folds and fabrics and things in the house.
Sure, sure.
So.
Sure. Well, talk a little bit about the one that's behind you, too.
This was part of a show that a friend and I did down at Ravenswish. And I did all the pieces in black and white, and they were all of hands with different themes. This one is titled Elegance Never Grows Old.
Oh, I love that.
I love working in just white on black, which is the way I did these. And I have, I think, 5 or 6 pieces, all just different hands, different people, different events.
Sure. Wonderful. That's wonderful. Again, so, yeah, it looks like there's somebody standing there or, sitting there with their hands together. So talk about these lovely pieces here, these wood pieces. These
are pieces I drew on gesso board. It's cradle gesso board, they call it. And they're normally for painting, but I discovered I could draw on them quite well. And I had the idea that I really wanted to mix in some metallic leafing with some of the pieces I did. And
I love the metallic. It is awesome.
Oh, it is. And these are great fun to work on. It's different than working on paper. You can't put as many layers of color. You got to get there quicker.
Right.
But I love the way that it handles it, and I have done a lot of pieces. I'm working on some pairs now that are kind of surrealistic, I guess, because I have them jumping rope and playing hopscotch and doing all kinds of things. So that I'm just barely begun that one. I probably shouldn't have said anything in case it doesn't work out. People will ask me.
Now we're holding you to it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Now if I mess it up, somebody's going to know. These are just little pieces that I do, often this size if I'm doing a demo before a group, and I want to be able to have a complete finished drawing for them to look at. Colored pencil,
sure.
The one thing we haven't mentioned is it's not a fast medium.
I imagine
for
not.
Most people.
Sure.
For most people, it's
Sure.
not. And so I do things that size. I put them in these little frames, and then they wind up down at Ravenswish, and they're just little impulse buys.
Yeah.
So they're the type of, I brought these along because I do a lot of still life as well as people. It's not always people.
Sure.
So that's why I brought those along.
I love it. Love it. Okay, and now talk about these two.
Yeah, the top one is mixed media, as I mentioned earlier.
Watercolors too, or just colored pencil? Tell me again.
Colored pencil and gold leaf.
Gold leaf, yes.
Which I used on the back of the drafting film. You can draw on both sides of that, which is what allows you to do some things that just jump off the page. A lot of artists who do still lifes with bottles and high shine like to use the drafting film as well.
The drafting film, okay.
There are so many names I could tell you to look up. One artist in particular does beautiful pieces that are all black and white, and as much of the drawing is done with an eraser as with a pencil. His name's Tracy Frein. Look him up.
Tracy Frein, okay.
Frein.
Okay.
But his work is great. And the piece on the floor does not have anything but pencil, but it's on both sides of the film.
Paper?
The sky, the area in the background is all on the back. And then the image is on the front, which lets the image pop forward a little bit more.
Yeah, give that 3D.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that one will be one of my entries for this year's international show. We'll see whether they like it as well as I do.
Oh, wow. That's art is art, right?
Right.
Art is art.
Yes.
Art is the eye of the beholder for everything.
These are really the first 2 of a series. I like to work in series. I like to do at least 3 pieces, and then sometimes I won't do it anything on that series for maybe 2 to 5 years, and I'll think of something else and add to it. So these are, the first one is called Mother Nature's Anger. And the second one is Mother Nature is Exasperated Again. So it will be a Mother Nature series.
Sure, sure. And I love the stories that you tell in your series. That's wonderful.
Well, when I'm going to be less than flattering to somebody, I often use myself as the model because I can't insult myself. And I don't want to make my friends feel bad. So when I get into some of these, it appears I draw myself fairly often.
Well, and that's very kind of you and respectful of you, which I bet $1 million your friends would probably say, "Oh, it's fine, Dava, go ahead, use my face."
But I do have some, like Karen,
Yes,
who was just having as much fun with it as I was. But there are those who are maybe more sensitive in one way or another, and I don't know what their background is. I'm not going to do something that hurts their feelings.
sure, makes them feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love it. You are so talented.
Thank you.
And thank you so very much for being on the show with us today. I really, really appreciate you sharing your expertise, your cheerleaderness, teaching me how to color with colored pencils. It just, all of it. I'm so honored to meet you, and I can't wait to stop into your studio and stand over. I will be the little girl standing over your shoulder watching you.
Good.
And I want to learn more about this paper, the drafting paper.
The drafting, it's
yes.
actually a plastic film, just like draftsmen use.
It is. I'm picturing it because I first I got to learn on the drafting board, so
Right.
I did that. Yeah. So cool.
Good.
Cool.
Well, you come in. I'll make sure I've got some down there you can play with.
Awesome. I can't wait. Thanks again, Dava, for being here.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Everyone, I'm really the lucky one. I get to meet all of these wonderful, inspirational artists and to share them with the world. I really hope that all of you out there too are being inspired just as much as I am. So thank you so very much for joining us on Loving Life Creatively. We hope you've been inspired by the incredible talent and stories of our local artists. It's truly been an honor sharing this time with you. Creating is an exhilarating escape that quiets the mind and fuels positivity. When you dive into the creative process, it's like flipping a switch that drowns out the noise and fills you with a vibrant energy. Every brushstroke, word, or note is a step towards a joyful accomplishment, making the world brighter and your spirit just a little lighter. Creating is really, truly for everyone. So keep creating, keep inspiring, and keep loving life creatively. Until next time, see you then.